to The Truth in This Art, your source for conversations at the intersection of arts, culture, and community. I am your host, Rob Lee, and thank you for listening into this podcast today. And I got something special for you. My next guest is an Ignatz-nominated mangaka, illustrator, writer, and content creator based out of New York City. Her work blends Japanese manga art with vintage American comic and pulp aesthetics, specializing in dark, fantastical, and dramatic themes. Please welcome the queen of Black horror manga, Gigi Murakami. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for making the time. And, as I'm one to do, and I find like in doing the research, right, we travel in some similar circles. So again,
yes,
it's pretty tight. So I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself in your own words. I think a lot of times our introductions, the ones that are given for us, we got a little bit more. We can do a little bit more than the ones that's written down on paper. It's always a detail that's missing, so I want to give the floor to you.
Yeah, well, my name is Gigi Murakami. I am a New York City native, and I'm based in Brooklyn. I am a horror manga artist and illustrator. I also am a content creator and a small business owner. I'm also a writer. I write my own stories, but I feel like I'm not sure if I feel like that's not enough to be like, I'm a writer. I feel like I make manga, like that's enough. But yeah, I am also an Ignatz. I was also Ignatz-nominated for my story Resenter. I am published in Viz currently, and I will be, or I'm published in Abrams also, but the book is not out yet. Well, we can get into that though. But yeah, I am still a baby in these streets, still figuring out my way, but I am really excited to be embarking on this weird new kind of creative journey as a person being me in this world. I don't know.
It's a great way to put it. It's like me as a person.
Just like with all my intersections and all my stuff, like I'm out here just doing me, just trying to be the happiest me I can be.
Envious. No, but I appreciate that. And I'll describe this before I start going into my questions, right? Because
sure,
you're a pop culture person. I get it, and so you're going to get this reference, especially based on the subject matter of a movie you haven't seen, but I know you know about it. We talked a little bit about Longlegs, what have you. And right. I think of sort of when someone is, hunting the killer or what have you, you see these dots. It's like, here's a string leading here. Here's another connection. That is what I'm doing when I'm researching people. That's the only way I can put it. So there's a board in the studio with your face on it. I'm kidding.
There's no way. Oh my God. It's giving It's Sunny in Philadelphia, that meme. Like
it's good. It's good.
Like, oh.
I have been described as Charlie in the past, so that's a different story for a different podcast.
Oh my gosh.
So you touched on New York City native. So that's the Bronx, right?
Yes. I was born in the Bronx. Yeah.
So I read a little bit about some of your early, interests. You had some personal favorites, Tales from the Crypt, Twilight Zone, and video games like Silent Hill. So how did some of that early exposure to like horror and sci-fi kind of shape your creative vision?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think that having those influences so young, having those like interests so young, and then those like sticking with me, I don't know. I think it's solidified that like this is something that's very important to me. And like it's not something that I just got into frivolously as a kid. Like as we tend to think of like childhood experience as like, oh, that's whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's been, yeah, just like it's stuck with me. So like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm not answering your question right.
No, 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 no. I think sometimes the answer, I'm sure you'll have something, Japanese around this to, really get a point across. I think sometimes the simplest answer is like
Is the answer, right? Maybe.
I add this sort of sensibility that I have, right? Where, I don't know if it had anything, but I'm gonna assume that it did. As a kid, I'm born in 85, so 40 is
Mm,
creeping up like in the sauntering darkness. And one of the earliest memories I have was my parents just having a party and they somehow leave me in the room watching like Friday the 13th 4,
ooh.
like by myself. I might be 4, might be 5, who knows? And it's just that's what it was. And maybe it had some effect on. I watch a lot of slasher movies now, and I told you about my dimensions. I was Jason Voorhees for like 5 years in a row, and things of that nature, and or even growing up and. You see certain tropes of movies and things of that nature, and really getting into the minutia of horror. I always look back at some of those early movies, and
Right.
and when there's the opportunity to see a revival of it, I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm at home. I was always there, and it's something about that that's just sitting there that maybe colors sort of my sensibilities in the media I'm into and the sort of universe of people that I'm interested in talking to at times. Like your people when you see them. I don't know. Maybe that's a more long-winded
That
version.
is true. No, 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 for sure. You definitely know your people when you see them. And yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. Um, I think when I think back of like when I was watching uh Tales from the Crypt as a kid, I feel like it's hard to kind of describe it, but like I feel like that was like my space, like my time. Um, when I did watch it, it was this was in the 90s, the early 90s. So that's me aging myself. But when I grew up, we did not have cable. It was only like just like standard national TV. And every Saturday, Tales from the Crypt would come on at like I think like 12
Mm,
a.m. or something like that, 12 a.m. or like 1 a.m. Um, and we we only had one TV in the house, and by that time, my mom was like knocked out, and so like that would be like my me time. And I didn't have a lot of that
yeah,
time at that age. I had an older sister, but like I don't know. It felt like it felt like one of those things that happens when you're a kid, like similar to like you watching uh Friday the 13th as a kid. And it's like, does anybody know that this is on? Like, am I the only one that's seeing this and like experiencing this? Like at that time, it was like, I don't know. It just felt like my time, my space, like my private moment, but as a kid. And it's so like it's so weird to describe it like that because it's like kids don't have private moments, but it's like no, really, like it was yeah, it was super fundamental. It was
yeah.
super fundamental. Just like it's you ever see those memes where like kids are in the playground and the joke is like it's you at like 5 or 6 years old and you discover sentience for the first time and you're like I have fingers like what are we doing here? And there's another kid across the playground, like having the same moment as you, and they're like, ah,
Just freaking out.
it's Liz just freaking out. I feel like it's that happening, but on a smaller scale, like as far as like your tastes and like your ego, like who you are and like what you enjoy, like that's happening as a kid on a smaller scale. Like that's what I think was what was going on with me when I was watching these things when I was younger. Um, it wasn't even so much that I could really understand these stories or like relate to them. But I internally I felt like just intrinsically drawn to them. Like this is something that is like very important and private and like special for me. That's like the best way I could describe that.
I dig that. And I think there's also sort of that specialness, that sort of me time, maybe. I feel that as well, where, especially as I even look at it now, yeah, since we're talking about it, I started thinking like when I mentioned to like my family or anything along those lines, like, yeah, I'm going to see a horror movie. I don't do none of that. And I'm like, yo, so
It's
it's very
always
much
that
more
reaction.
isolated. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before I move into this next question, I remember the show back in the day, and I have like the Shutter network, I had the whole thing, right? Shutter. I remember back in the day it was Chiller, and
Hmm.
I remember, when Tales from the Crypt would come on regular TV. I remember this one episode where it was maybe as a mortician and his son was really tall, and somehow he killed his son. His son fell down the steps and he came back as a zombie with no feet because he couldn't fit him in a coffin. So he cut his feet off or what have you to fit him in a
Mm.
coffin. And I remember that, and especially being tall, I was like, yo, this is what's going to happen. And and this other show that terrified me, especially like being a fat kid growing up, was
Fellow
the
fat person growing up. Hell yeah.
this, it was this show called Monsters. And if you haven't, you should watch it. If you haven't seen it, it's wild. Where
It's not the cartoon Monsters, right?
no, 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 this was like almost the companion piece for Tales from the Dark Side in that era, right? And
Mm.
it was a little more, it was a little cornier, but it worked. Where the setup is, it's a family that literally they look like monsters and they're watching a TV show, and it's these different vignettes. It's sort of it's a series in that way. And the one episode that sticks out, it was a guy who was just eating way too much, and he just went on a
Mm.
crash diet, and the food in the refrigerator started talking to him, don't eat us. And I was like, this is a lot for me. And it has like the puppets and their tomatoes. I was like, he's not eating tomatoes, but he's not going to eat
Why
thing.
did that unlock a core memory? Like, wait, maybe I have seen this?
You probably have seen
Why does
that.
that sound
It's
familiar?
terrifying.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you may have to send me like a link because that I swear that's opened up like a core memory. I'm like, I think I've I think I've experienced this before.
You've probably seen this, and I think they echo some of that visual language in Requiem of a Dream with the refrigerator. That
Oh
whole
yes.
yeah, so
Yes, yes,
which is
yes,
also
yes.
terrifying.
Terrifying movie. Like I was already a dare kid growing up. Like you did not need to have I did not need to see that movie.
I want to keep my
That
arm.
was
Just
I want to keep my arm, I want to keep my sanity. I just all of the things. Yeah, that was my God. That is it's an extreme movie. We
yeah.
can move
No.
on from that.
Let's move on. Let's move on. So talk a little bit, because I see vintage pulp influence. I see Japanese manga, obviously, that influence your work. So talk a bit about those influences and some of the messages like within your work, like you're aiming to convey. Like it's that those multiple influences, you have like blackness, you have the female experience that is in there, and we're definitely going to talk about Resenter in a moment, but I see those but I want to hear it from you.
Right. So I have always really been super drawn into like the old like EC Comics covers and like I'm a huge movie buff, so like I love seeing a lot of the like drawn movie covers and stuff like that. Um which we don't do anymore. It's like how many heads can you Photoshop into an image nowadays?
Good.
Which is like it could be done well, but sometimes it's just not. But I am a fan of like interesting posters and like old horror comic covers and pulp covers and stuff like that. Um and of course like I love manga and I love anime and like all of the stuff that's coming from Japan. So my kind of big thing with these has always been like trying to figure out not always. I didn't this really clicked in like 2020, but like trying to figure out how to like put these two together. Um and to be quite honest, something that didn't like something that I wasn't like super cognizant of at that time was how much I really did like movie posters and like these like illustrated covers and stuff and like also like horror book covers and stuff like that from like the 70s, 80s time. Um I knew aesthetically, like back in my brain, like aesthetics, like that was rich for me.
Sure.
But it wasn't something that all of these things, like it wasn't something that you could see in my work. Um, and so, with my, I guess, awakening, finding my artistic voice during the pandemic, I wanted to make sure that I always kept that. So I have all my knickknacks and stuff like that online that I found online and like put up on my wall and stuff like that. Um, yeah, yeah. I feel like I'm not answering your questions properly. I feel like I'm giving
You're
you context, but no answers.
no. You're doing great, and that's the thing. Like, you get into the thinking of what goes into it. So, like, it's a unique podcast. You're like, oh, tell me about your work. I don't do that. I'm like, yeah, I'm curious. What you got? So, so if you will, let's
Mm,
shift a little bit. Let's talk about specific work. Let's go into the Ripper realm a little bit. Let's talk
nice.
about
Yeah.
Resenter. How,
Let's do it.
let's talk about it. How long did it take to complete the project? For folks who are undipped, uninitiated, give us sort of the byline of what Resenter is, and give us some of those details, like how long did it take to complete, like sort of the project as it is currently, and some of your insights on the creative process and sort of where that initial idea came from, like sort of that piece, the genesis, if you will. Not the Sega Genesis, but never mind. That's a bad joke.
So, the genesis of Resenter, where did it come from? And also timelines, right?
Sure.
So, Resenter, so just what Resenter is. Resenter is a story about a young woman named Jackie who is murdered at her job one night, and she wakes up in this place called the Death Zone, and she has the opportunity to get revenge on her killer from beyond the grave. She meets this woman named Rhea, who is a Ripper, and Rippers are like the Grim Reapers of this world. And upon meeting Rhea, she offers Jackie three options. One is to basically transition into a new form, be reincarnated. The second option is that revenge option, which is the primary function of Rippers. And then the third option is for Jackie herself to become a Ripper. And that's basically the crux of the story. Um, and Jackie obviously chooses to become a Ripper. And so that's the crux of what Resenter is about. How did it come about? Actually, so Resenter, I got started in 2021 is when I believe I started planning stuff out and started getting uh some like initial pages and sketches done and stuff like that. Um and the idea of Resenter, actually, the crux of it came from my own feelings of like resentment and like feeling wronged in my own personal life with like family, friends, mentors that I respected, that I felt like uh, I I poured into a lot as a student, but didn't receive that back as like from like my mentors. Um, and during the pandemic, we just had a lot of time to like sit and think about everything. Um, and in my own personal life, I was thinking a lot about um, some situations that had happened and that were not resolved,
Sure.
and feeling for the first time like very angry about these things, especially because the person that kind of committed these things um, might die because of COVID. And so there was a lot of me digging very deep and like figuring out like how I feel about not just this particular person,
Sure.
but about all these things that have been happening in my life where I felt like I was done wrong or I wasn't poured into, or like I was doing more work, emotional labor and more emotional work than what I was receiving, and feeling very upset about that and like very bitter about that, and like not obviously, like I can't gain revenge in the same way that like you can in Resenter.
Yeah.
Um, but I did want to figure out how to explore those things that was not just therapy.
Yeah.
Um, and personally, I really love revenge tales. Kill Bill is one of my favorite movies.
You get it.
Right? Uh, um, Prisoner, I think it's 704 Sasori is also a big like dope revenge tale that I enjoy. Which aesthetic wise is also like how Jackie's design came to be.
Okay.
But yeah, I love these types of movies. But the main thing that they all had in common was that there was like an assault on a woman, like a sexual assault, right? And I kind of tired of that. We could kind of leave that alone, leave
Yeah.
that in the back. Um, and so I did want Jackie's revenge to not be like any assault that she'd be getting to not be of like a sexual nature.
Yeah.
And for her to feel her like resentments and her need for revenge from that. So that is the genesis of Resenter and how it came to be. So it is not my story, but it was born from very strong feelings that I had. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you. Yes. That is that's
I
my
mean,
spiel.
it's one of those rare instances where I get to talk to the creator of something that I dig, and it's like, yeah, fill in those blanks. Yeah, tell me more. And I too love revenge. In fact, that movie review podcast I was sharing with you, the last review I did was Kill Bill for last year.
Oh,
It's
hell
like
yeah.
I was like, this is great. We get into the minutia with it. But yeah, love a good revenge story, love something that's done well. And, you know,
Right.
when confronted with those three options, I'm like, ooh, I'm petty. I'm petty. I'm like, look, how am I gonna
Felt.
do this?
Oh my
What
gosh.
do you
So
here?
felt. So felt. Yes. I People ask me sometimes like what options I would choose, and I think when I was writing the story, I might have gone with option two. I'm not even gonna hold you. I might have gone with option two.
I'm sitting there. I was like, come on, make the don't make the narrative choice. Make the real choice, and the real choice is option two.
I think I might have gone that route, but I like at this point in time, I'm okay to just be reincarnated, honestly. I'm okay to just like I'm okay. I was wronged. It's fine. Whatever. We'll get through it.
I hold on to that. I will find a way that one is known. Like for whatever reason, Candyman sticks out to me so much these days upon rewatching it.
Oh,
I
for
was like, oh no,
sure.
no, yeah, I'm gonna be around. Paint me on a wall. You're gonna see me. You're gonna
For
see walk out
sure.
of my mouth. That was a weird way to put it, but you're gonna walk out of my mouth and Cabrini Green.
For sure though. No, that's like that's for sure. That's a real thing. Like I think in that sense, like I too am petty. Like yeah, I will not do to you what you did to me, but there will be some psychological warfare. Like, come on. Like what?
Look,
We like we will we will still get like a little bit of vengeance. Like
I
we
will
ain't no Mother
hire
Teresa out here. Like stop it.
I will hire a street team to plaster your neighborhood with my signage.
Oh,
Just
for
that you see,
sure.
it's like, oh, hey, I'll just do it. It's like the Kevin Smith bit from those early seasons of Smodcast. You're just like, just producers, throw some money at it. And it's like, whenever there's a problem, throw some money at it. That is literally how I approach pettiness now. Maybe
Mm.
years ago, it's just like, I'm just going to show up at your restaurant. I'm just going to look wild.
Ooh.
I have a very specific person in mind when I say this. Moving on. Um, so one of the things, and I like that you touched on like movie posters, right? And one of the things about the cover art for Resenter, it really stands out. It's visually striking. What significance or imagery were you aiming to create with it, and how does it set the tone for the story, held within?
For the one shot or for the initial first chapter?
For the initial first chapter.
For the initial first chapter, I so first of all, I really like Satoshi Kon. Um, he is the director of Perfect Blue, Paprika. He also did Tokyo Godfathers and Millennium Actress. And he was also a manga artist, and a rather good one earlier in his career. But there is a scene in his movie Paprika where I kind of want to describe Paprika. It's a bit of a it's a chaotic movie.
It is.
Um, but it has to do with the dreams and like how like jumping into people's dreams. So there's a lot of like very trippy visuals, but there is a scene in Paprika where the main character is split in half.
Hmm.
Um, you have to watch the movie to get it. Honestly, it's a lot of dream logic that happens, but the titular main character is she is two people. And she becomes split open and you can see like her actual self within the titular character Paprika. Um that is a terrible way to describe that. Watch the movie. Just watch the movie. You'll see what I'm saying. But that imagery of like a woman being like kind of ripped open,
Hmm.
I thought was so cool. It was really striking to me on initial watch. And then when it came to Resenter, uh, because the idea of rippers was so big, like that word and like this like cool factor of like Meiko Kaji from Sasori, with like the long black trench coat and the hat and like I like that. Am I allowed to curse?
Please.
That shit was so fucking cool to me. And I was like, okay. And my like when Jackie first came about, I drew her first and the titular like title was instead of Resenter, it was just like Jackie the Ripper. That was
Yeah.
just like this idea that I had. So the
Nice.
idea of ripping was like very clear and like very like neon lights in my brain. And so when I saw that image, that like scene in Paprika, I was like, yeah, that's so dope. And I was thinking like, yeah, ripping, like a woman ripping open and like let's continue that. And then on top of that, whenever I'm working on like not whenever, but earlier on when I was getting into horror, specifically with like Black women, I was always wanting to mess around with like the optics of like beauty and like ugliness,
Sure.
um, without getting mean. I'm always very cognizant of that, because as Black women, we have enough meanness around our beauty and aesthetics. Um, and so if I am going to be mean or if I am going to be grotesque, like doing it in a way that's like narratively driven and
Sure.
not just to be like offensive or like or mean, really, really just like mean. Um, but I do like that dichotomy, that like juxtaposition of like beauty and ugliness with women, and like I think that's kind of cool. And so that's where the idea from the cover came from. Um, just like this emphasis on like something being ripped apart, the dichotomy of like feminine beauty and like ugliness, and also like narratively speaking, like Jackie is now being reborn into this new entity.
Yeah.
She's shedding her old skin, so to speak. She's not really this like human creature anymore, and she's like in this new space, and um, her eyes change, and like she's just different. So that is where that came from for the initial chapter one cover.
Thank you. So I have,
You're
I,
welcome.
no, I have one, and because like it again, like I said, it's filling in holes, which is really great for me, and you know, I'm assuming, but I want to hear as far as the design for Raya. What was an influence there for sort of that look? Because I see it in my head, but I want to hear it from you because it's a name that comes to mind. But please, who?
I I hope we're thinking the same name, but Raya has about three different influences. One of which being Viola Davis. Another, the heavier, more visual influences though are Grace Jones and Angela Bassett.
Nice, nice, nice.
That was not who you were thinking. Who were
I
you
love.
thinking then?
No, 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 no. You hit it. You hit it. I love
Oh,
it.
did I? Okay.
The Grace Jones thing, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah, definitely like that is Rhea. It's a mix of it is a mix of like a certain prestige with
Yeah.
like Viola Davis, like a certain richness, but also like a certain like unhinged like auntie like at the club kind of like with Grace Jones and like let's drink and I don't give a damn. Let's just have fun. Um so that is definitely like Rhea's personality for sure.
And I like that you confirmed because as I'm reading it, I was like, Jackie Ripper. I was like, hold up. Are we doing it? I was like, we're here. We're here. I love it. So in terms of even the, and I'm going to move into this next question in a moment. Were there
Mhm.
any other like items that you're like, as far as design, as far as like the aesthetics of how a character maybe dresses that you wanted to include in there? And it's just like, all right, the people who are supposed to get it, they'll get it.
Mm.
Because I was feeling a little Zora Neale Hurston in some of the visuals, but
With the
maybe
hats or
yes, yes, maybe I'm reaching.
um so I honestly I wanted to make something. This is going to be so unsatisfying. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make something that looked cool but also like would would be something that I could draw over and over again without it being like too much. To be
That's
honest.
that's a little good
Um
answer.
I do think though with a little more care to like Jackie's design. As far as Rhea's design, there is care there. I wanted Rhea to look because she is an older woman, but she's not like an old lady.
Yeah.
I wanted her to look a little more youthful. So she has like this like mesh, um, this is like mesh blouse with like this tube top under. It's like in a blazer. And like I did get that outfit from Viola Davis. So shout out to you, Viola. I don't know if she had the mesh on. Maybe she did have the mesh on. I'm not sure. With Jackie's outfit though, I think little nods that might be gathered, but I think people might gaslight themselves out of it is like Janelle Monáe. Early Janelle Monáe was
Mm.
definitely like an influence for Jackie's uniform. Um, I did mention Sasori. Anybody who is like into like underground like Japanese pinky films will for sure spot like Sasori and Jackie's design. Um, but yeah, I was also like influenced by Vampire Hunter D and also V for Vendetta. V from V for Vendetta, who is like a phenomenal character. I love V so much. So much. Um ooh, sorry, my headphones are doing a thing.
Oh no.
Sorry, my Bluetooth like left and then it came back. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, okay, perfect, perfect. It came back. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. You're
It
good.
just it does that. I don't know why. But yeah, so yeah, for Jackie's design you can see like you can see all these other like small notes of like characters in the past and stuff like that. But yeah, V for Vendetta, so good. So good. I would
Nice.
love to make a character similar to V. I don't know if it would be in Resenter, although I think a character similar to V in Resenter would be kind of fun. But yeah, those were some of the little like things in their design.
Nice. Yeah, I want to figure out a way to get a Guy Fawkes going on with but I'll workshop it. I'll figure it out. It'll be Beijing. Fine. So I want to move into this sort of like this last sort of wrap up question, if you will, as we wrap up here. like your work and you touched on it a bit. Your work explores like the Black female experience, or I hate when people say the experience. It makes it seem like it's only one, but a common
Right.
Black, female experience through horror and through, sci-fi as well. What impact do you hope or to leave on the viewers, on the audience, if any? And like, what advice would you give like Black women wanting to go into manga, wanting to go into the horror genre? As you say, you're a baby in this game, so it's like it's fresh for you. You're not this sort of like stage of I'm a master. You got to get
Mm,
out, get yours. Being removed
mhm.
from it. So, what are your thoughts in that area?
Black women trying to pursue horror, um, truthfully should just go for it.
Mm.
I am of like I this is funny. I was having this joke earlier with a friend. I was like, I think I am like the creative friend that is like becoming the embodiment of the Shia LaBeouf, just do it. Cause like
Do
anytime
I?
like anytime my creative friends are like having a problem, I'm like aggressively like pumping them up and like, don't talk about my friend that way. You are great. You are fantastic. Do it. Um, I feel that like as creatives, like Black creatives, and especially as like female creatives or like non-binary creatives, it's like it is hard to feel like you can sort of fit in.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes it's hard to just even figure out like from which angle to start with. That was something that was bothering me a lot earlier on. And I think as long as you're like workshopping these things, that should not be like, I don't think these are an excuse to not do the thing. I
Sure.
think you can workshop these things and like find your way still. Um, you asked me another question that was like before that, and I'm struggling to remember that question.
Let me pull it back up. Let's see.
Roll up the scroll.
Your characters have a unique look that blends
No,
realism and manga? Is that the question?
not that one. It was all in this like same thing of
Oh, got it,
questions.
got it. Let me pull. Nah, I definitely have to pull everything back. Let's go back. Let's
Oh
see what we got.
no.
No, no, you're good. You're good. So as we wrap up, I'll just redo the whole question. As we wrap up, your work explores the Black female experience through horror and
Experience.
sci-fi. Yeah.
Yes.
So what impact, do you hope, and what advice
That
impact? Yeah.
what impact? That was the question. I have ADHD, Rob. You gotta give me the questions one at a time.
I'm look, I talk too much, so please.
um, the impact that I hope that my work will have is well, I have like a few shorts, but Resenter is like my main like larger work. So with Resenter, I suppose I hope that people will challenge their beliefs and
Yeah.
challenge their thinking and expand their idea of like perspective and morality. Um, I am finding that in our particular time in this country, there is a lot of like weird division that's happening. Um, there's nothing wrong with having a very strong belief, but I do think that if it's at the expense of expanding your own ideas or like expanding your understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Like if it's at that expense, it's not a good belief system, I think. I think we should all like be thinking more broadly about the things in our lives, how
Yeah.
we treat other people, how we treat ourselves, especially. But like I would hope that's a big ask with Resenter, but I would hope that with this tale of like revenge and like morality and like I would hope that people can sort of have a stronger understanding that like understanding somebody else's
Mm.
point of view and perspective is just as valuable as getting your own points and perspectives across
Hmm.
and like taking that in. Um I think for my work on a wider level though, I want people to take away that like Black people can do really cool shit. Like we can. We have, um, and we should continue to do these things. I would hope that like I would hope humbly to be an example of that. But yeah.
I truly believe that you are. And as I've been saying, for the last few weeks, since, I've prepped for the research and coming up on us doing this conversation, I've been talking it up. I've been gassing it up and gassing your work up. And, folks are like, who is she? What does she do? And I was like, well, here's the link. You should go there. You should check it out. It's fantastic. And, just it's been a pleasure to chat with you about it and get some of those sort of blanks filled in. So with all of that good stuff, and as I'm continuing to gas you up, with all of that good stuff sort of out of the way, now to go into the rapid fire portion, which some people, they're like, look, I'm getting off the ship. Other people are like, all right, keep them coming. So I got four of them.
Right.
I got four of them for you. And as I tell folks all the time, don't overthink them. Whatever is the first answer, is like, look, I said what I said. That's sort of what it is.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned Satoshi Kon, favorite Satoshi Kon.
Favorite movie?
Yes.
Perfect Blue. That was the first I ever saw. That was the GOAT, like Perfect Blue.
As a person who's seen Perfect Blue and Paprika, like sort of back to back, and I watched it with the partner, and she was just like,
it's a leap.
Ooh. She's like, this is wild. She's like, I am never singing. I don't want to have a double. And I started just humming Parade from Paprika. She's like, can you stop? I was like, no.
It's so good. The music in Paprika is so freaking good. So
100%.
good. Shout out to oh my gosh, Susumu Hirasawa, who does the music for Paprika. He's like kind of like he was Khan's like right hand man when it came to music. He did Paprika, Paranoia Agent, Millennium Actress. He did it like they collaborated a lot. Their work just like it just meshes so well together. It's so good. But yeah.
Here's the next one. What is a horror trope that is corny, it's goofy, it's overused, but you love it? You're like, more of that, please.
Oh,
because tropes get a bad name.
Tropes do get a bad name. Oh man, you're telling me to like rapid fire, and I can't. If it's just like first thought, final girl, I don't know. I feel like that's not. People aren't trying to get rid of the final girls, but like, I don't know. I do like the final girls though.
Same.
But I don't know. This is rapid fire. I'm trying not to think so hard.
No, same. When I watch these sort of like long form, we're going over the history of horror movies like Into the Darkness or what have you. I'm like, sit here and I've watched 9 hours of heads exploding and limbs flying off. I was like, all of it. Just keep going. Can it be 15 hours? I don't care. And when the final girl thing pops up, whether it's in a slasher movie or what have you, I'm like, oh no, she's great. Oh, she's not the final girl. Wow. When they try to change it and
switch it up. Yeah.
This is also movie related. This next one.
Okay.
No. So this is sort of a rewatchable question. Is there a movie that no matter where you catch it, it can be in the first minute of the movie or in the last 5 minutes of the movie, you're like, I'm finishing this. I'm going to finish watching this. What's the movie for you?
If we're talking horror, it's probably House of a Thousand Corpses.
Okay.
I really like House of a Thousand Corpses. I actually I met Rob Zombie this last month. That's why I have this sweater on. This is like my new comfort sweater now. And I told him how much I really appreciated House of a Thousand Corpses, and he was like, "That? Really?" And I was like, "Yes, yes." That movie helped me develop my visual library and like aesthetic library so much. Like, yes, absolutely. House of a Thousand Corpses without fail. Non-horror related, probably Moulin Rouge. I do enjoy musicals. As much as it doesn't look like I do, I really enjoy musicals.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So here's
I saw both of those like at a fundamental, like at a crucial time in my artistic development. Yeah.
I'll throw out my corny one, and just so it feels like there's an exchange here, it's Rocky 5 for me. No, Rocky 4 rather, when he beats up Russia.
Okay. Oh, that's yeah.
This is just a
That
music
was
video. It's just
yeah.
a 85-minute music video.
Yeah. Patriotic music video. Very patriotic.
Look, if they can make it, if I can redo it and just make it a Pan-African flag that's on my trunks,
Okay.
I'm going to move on because it's going to go on the road. Here's the last one. Here's the last one I got for you. Um, and I'm thinking of a specific thing because you said it during a podcast.
Hmm.
Worst movie poster you've seen in the last year?
In the last year.
Yeah, because there have been some doozies with AI being there and just people not respecting the game of actual good, poster art. Because when you
I'm
you
not
mentioned you mentioned the sort of like the Photoshop head, I started giggling in my because I've seen some. It's a lot of Marvel ones that aren't good.
it's like
So,
20 people on the cover and it's like there's no way. All of these people can't be important. Like we have to snip some of this. Like what's going on? Um in the last year, I'm not gonna hold you. I've seen some pretty banger posters in the last year. And I follow a lot of graphic artists,
yeah.
graphic designers on Instagram, and they will remake posters. And I haven't seen a bad poster yet. I'm just gonna lump on with your situation and say like, yo, any posters in the past year that have been made with AI, probably trash,
Yeah, get them
probably
out of there.
trash.
Get them
Get
out
them
of
out
there.
of there. There's so many good graphic designers online that are like killing it. There's really no need for AI.
I
Like,
feel I feel
come
like
on.
I feel like the whoever does, and I knew the guy because I interviewed a designer who was just dropped the guy's name, but or one of the guy's names. Whoever was doing the Criterion collection of these movies and they redo the posters, that's just hire that person. Just go minimalistic, go something that looks cool. And and before I close out, I'll say this last piece. It's very akin to when I thought of like when you were describing it, sort of like these more pulp and sort of these more throwback aesthetics in these posters. I think of like wasn't like the original Star Wars poster like painted? Like what are we doing with this garbage these days?
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 minute.
Please.
Because now that we're talking about this, hold on. I gotta grab my book. Because I know, because this is another hero.
You get it.
Drew Struzan,
Yes.
dude. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
This man, like, he did the posters, and I forget that he did Harlem Nights posters also.
Nice.
I'm trying to find like the Star Wars stuff that he did. I might struggle for a little bit. I don't know how much time we have, but this guy has done. Oh, here's some of the Star Wars ones. Oh, these are from the other movies, but he has done some of the most beautiful movie posters.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we go from this?
Right.
Like, how do we go from this to like 20 heads? Like, what are we even, what is this conversation? What are we even talking about? Like, are you kidding me? Like, the man did Angels in the Outfield. Like, he did cover for Hook. Like, how do we
Hook
go
is
from this?
fire.
How do we go from this to like AI and like photoshopping like 20 heads on like it just doesn't make any sense.
So let me close out here. And thank you for that
Makes
because
me mad.
that's see, I like to end the podcast when people are tight. Um, so So I'll say this again. Thank you so much for coming onto this podcast and spending some time. And this has been fun. This has been enlightening. And in these final moments, I want to invite you to share with the listeners where you can check you out, your social media, your website, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I also want to say thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to do this because, it has been a little bit of a phone tag or email tag rather going on. But yes, thank you so much. My name is Gigi Murakami, again, horror manga artist and illustrator. I have a website online where you can find my stuff, gigimurakami.art. I also have an online store, gigimurakami.store. I made it very simple for people. I am online on Instagram, Gigi_Murakami. And it's just at Gigi Murakami everywhere, literally everywhere else. Also, Resenter has my one shot for Resenter has been published by Viz Media. You can read it on their manga app. It is literally plastered on all of my socials, like the link in bios. You will find it. But yeah, that is where I am at. I'm all over the internet.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank the queen of Black horror manga, Gigi Murakami, for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.